I never expected my life would unravel because of a forgotten phone charger. Standing in the quiet hallway of our vacation cabin, bathed in the fading amber light of a summer evening, I hesitated at the guest room door. Inside, my stepfather, Jason, spoke quietly, laughter threading through his voice in a way I'd never heard before. Curious, and admittedly nosy, I leaned closer, pressing my ear lightly against the wooden panel. The words were muffled, but unmistakably intimate. A ripple of confusion and anxiety tightened in my chest. My mother was miles away, visiting my grandmother in Phoenix, and I couldn't imagine who Jason would be whispering to with such tenderness. With a deep breath, I eased the door slightly open. My heart seized. Jason stood near the open window, his tall frame outlined against the dusky horizon, smiling warmly down at a man I'd never seen before. He was younger than Jason, maybe 30, with tousled dark hair, leaning casually against the dresser. The air between them was electric, filled with secrets and longing. The stranger reached out, brushing a gentle thumb over Jason's knuckles, a simple, yet deeply affectionate gesture. I quickly stepped back, heart thudding painfully. My thoughts spiraled, shock giving way to confusion, confusion blending into a strange, burning curiosity. I'd always felt a distant admiration for Jason, who came into my life years after I'd lost my father. He'd been supportive yet reserved, careful never to overstep, always maintaining a comfortable distance. Seeing him now, vulnerable and visibly in love, unraveled the carefully maintained image I'd built of him. The sound of soft footsteps behind me jolted me from my thoughts. I spun around, my face flushing hot. "Hey," came the gentle voice of Elliot, my best friend since high school, standing in the doorway, holding 2 fishing rods and wearing his usual easygoing smile. "You all right? You look like you've seen a ghost." Elliot had always been the calm presence I desperately needed, especially now. Tall and athletic, with eyes that reminded me of a quiet forest, deep, calming, comforting. Over the years, we'd shared everything: laughs, secrets, heartbreaks. Well, almost everything. The way my heart quickened whenever he walked into the room was the one secret I'd sworn to keep. Forcing a smile, I shook my head. "I'm good. Let's just get out to the lake." But even as we headed outside, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. Not between Jason and me, and certainly not between Elliot and me. The summer breeze brushed my skin, cool against the heat of my confusion and hidden desires, hinting at changes I wasn't yet brave enough to face. The sun dipped behind the trees, painting the lake in streaks of orange and purple. Elliot and I stood side by side on the dock, our lines cast, waiting in comfortable silence. This was our ritual, the quiet moments that had forged our friendship over countless summers spent together. I'd met Elliot the first week of high school, when my social awkwardness was at its peak, and I spent most days trying to become invisible. Elliot, however, saw me immediately. Like he'd always been able to look straight through the barriers I put up. Our friendship had begun effortlessly. Shared jokes whispered during algebra class, spontaneous afternoon hikes where we'd wander aimlessly, losing ourselves in conversations about music, books, and dreams we were still too young to understand. "You're quiet," Elliot said, glancing over at me, the corners of his mouth quirking into a playful grin. "Thinking about the one that got away? You mean the bass you scared off last summer?" I teased, nudging his shoulder gently. The warmth of his skin against mine lingered far longer than it should have, sending a rush of heat up my neck. He chuckled, shaking his head. "I swear it was a monster. You should be thanking me. I probably saved your life." "My hero," I said sarcastically, rolling my eyes, even though my heart gave an embarrassing flutter at the easy intimacy of our banter. The gentle waves tapped rhythmically against the dock, matching the comfortable rhythm of our friendship. Yet, beneath my easy laughter lay an undercurrent of something deeper, a quiet yearning I'd long tried to ignore. It had started in our senior year, subtle at first, then intensifying with each stolen glance, each lingering touch that made my breath catch. "You know," Elliot started casually, breaking the silence, "it's supposed to rain pretty heavily tonight." My gaze flickered to the darkening sky where heavy clouds loomed on the horizon. Seriously? I didn't bring the waterproof gear. Elliot shrugged, flashing a mischievous smile. Don't worry, I packed extra stuff, but… He hesitated, eyes darting away in a rare moment of uncertainty. There might be a small issue with the sleeping arrangements. My pulse quickened, my throat suddenly dry. How small are we talking? The tent I grabbed from the garage. It's the old one. It's barely big enough for one person, let alone two. He rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly, his eyes softening with apology. Sorry, Noah. It's fine, I managed, swallowing my nerves and forcing a casual shrug. We'll survive. He glanced at me, eyes holding mine for a beat too long, and a shiver that had nothing to do with the cooling air ran down my spine. Yeah, he said softly. We always do. The first droplets of rain splashed onto the wooden planks, breaking our gaze. Elliot laughed lightly, grabbing his gear. Come on, let's set up before we're soaked. As we hurried back to our campsite, laughter trailing behind us, I couldn't help stealing another glance at Elliot. The warmth of his earlier touch still lingered, echoing through me like a promise. My heart twisted gently with longing and fear. The closeness I'd craved and dreaded was now inevitable, and part of me, a deeply hidden, hopeful part, wondered if Elliot felt the same quiet tension that was steadily unraveling inside me. Rain hammered relentlessly on the nylon fabric above us, the rhythmic drumming echoing my heartbeat. I shifted awkwardly in the cramped tent, painfully aware of every accidental brush of Elliot's skin against mine. The tent truly was too small, our shoulders pressed together, our knees occasionally bumping, each contact sending an electric current racing through me. This is cozy, Elliot joked softly, his voice close enough for his breath to tickle my cheek. Cozy, I echoed with a forced laugh, trying to mask the nervous tremor in my voice. That's definitely one way to put it. In the tight space, there was nowhere to hide. Not from Elliot, not from myself. The tension between us had steadily grown over the years, an unspoken truth I'd never dared to voice. Now, trapped mere inches apart, it was becoming impossible to ignore. He shifted beside me, reaching across my legs to adjust the zipper on his sleeping bag. His arm brushed my thigh, lingering a fraction too long. My breath caught audibly, betraying the carefully constructed facade I'd worked years to maintain. You all right? Elliot asked quietly, pulling back just enough to meet my gaze, concern flickering in those deep forest green eyes. Yeah, I lied weakly. My heart was pounding so loudly I was certain he could hear it. Just feeling a bit trapped. He laughed lightly, his smile warm and reassuring, yet tinged with something else. Uncertainty. Hope. I couldn't decipher it clearly. Well, it wouldn't be the first time you panicked in a tight space. Remember the elevator incident senior year? I groaned, feeling heat rush into my cheeks. You promised never to bring that up. He grinned mischievously, nudging my shoulder playfully. You were adorable. I didn't mind calming you down. My stomach flipped at the memory. How Elliot had held my trembling hand in the dark elevator, whispering calming words until help arrived. It had been the first time I'd truly understood just how deep my feelings ran, and the memory still made my heart ache. Yeah, well, this is a little different, I muttered, dropping my gaze. My chest tightened with emotions I couldn't voice, words clawing at my throat. I wanted desperately to tell him everything, to finally admit the truth, but fear held me back. What if he pulled away? What if I lost the one friendship that had anchored me through the chaos of growing up? Elliot fell silent, the humor fading into something gentle, almost vulnerable. His fingers brushed mine as he reached for the small lantern hanging from the tent's ceiling. He hesitated, fingers resting lightly over mine, his breath hitching softly. Noah, he said quietly, the single word heavy with unspoken meaning. My heart lurched in response. Yeah? I whispered, afraid any louder voice might shatter the fragile moment between us. You've seemed different lately, he murmured, carefully measuring each word. Like something's weighing on you. Something you're not telling me. I froze, pulse hammering against my throat. Panic clawed at my chest, battling against the desperate desire to finally break free of this secret. Elliot, it's... My voice broke, the words choking me. It's complicated. He studied my face intently, the dim lantern casting soft shadows across his features. Maybe it doesn't have to be, he said gently. His thumb moved slowly, tracing a careful path along my knuckles, sending heat radiating up my arm. My heart was thundering, each beat pushing me closer to the truth. The warmth of his touch was hypnotic, melting away my defenses. Still, doubt lingered, a shadow at the edge of my mind. If I tell you, it could change everything. Elliot's expression softened, his gaze holding mine in silent understanding. Maybe it needs to change, he whispered, his voice low and rough with emotion. In that moment, the world outside ceased to exist. The tent, the rain, our tangled sleeping bags, all faded away, leaving only Elliot's eyes locked onto mine, impossibly close, yet achingly distant. I don't want to lose you, I admitted, the words barely audible. You won't. His fingers tightened reassuringly around mine, a promise made in silence. My voice trembled, heart thumping erratically as I hovered at the edge of confession, but fear still held me captive. My mind raced with doubts, memories of laughter shared, secrets whispered. The possibility of losing him paralyzed me, rendering me speechless. Sensing my hesitation, Elliot shifted closer, his warmth enveloping me. Carefully, tentatively, he reached up to tuck a loose strand of hair behind my ear, the simple gesture infinitely tender. His fingertips lingered against my cheek, his gaze searching my eyes for permission. Elliot, I whispered, trembling beneath his touch. I know, he breathed softly, the sincerity in his voice breaking down the last of my resistance. Trust me, Noah. Trust. I'd always trusted him. That trust had carried me through years of hiding, years of quietly loving him in secret. And in the vulnerability of that cramped tent, with the storm raging around us and the truth hanging unspoken in the air, I realized the risk had become unavoidable. Swallowing my fears, I leaned slightly into his touch, my heart surging at the gentle caress of his thumb against my cheek. The hesitation between us evaporated, leaving only warmth and possibility. Okay, I finally murmured, voice shaking with courage. I trust you. The quiet stretched between us, taut and fragile, as the storm battered the thin tent walls. Elliot's hand remained gently cupped against my cheek, his thumb softly tracing circles on my skin. Each movement a silent promise. My pulse thundered painfully, fear and hope warring inside me. I'd dreamed of this moment countless times, imagining what it would feel like to let go, to finally step beyond the line I'd always drawn. Elliot, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion, barely audible above the steady rain. He waited, eyes patient yet filled with anticipation, silently encouraging me. His gaze held a tenderness I'd never fully acknowledged before, a softness reserved only for me. Something I now recognized had always been there, quietly waiting beneath the surface. My voice faltered, my heart pounding with raw vulnerability. You mean so much to me. Elliot smiled gently, the warmth in his expression chasing away the cold fear lingering inside me. You mean everything to me too, Noah. Always have. I swallowed hard, courage surging painfully through my veins. No, I mean, I feel more than friends. The confession hung heavily between us, suspended on my trembling breath. Elliot's eyes widened slightly, a subtle shift betraying surprise mingled with relief. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, searching carefully for words. The pause stretched painfully, each passing second amplifying my anxiety. Please say something, I finally murmured, panic edging into my voice. He exhaled slowly, fingers gently sliding down to rest at my neck, thumb brushing soothingly against my jawline. I'm sorry, it's just, I've imagined you saying that so many times, but now that you have, I don't know how to react. My heart stumbled in confusion. Imagined it? He laughed softly, a self-conscious flush rising to his cheeks. Yeah, probably more often than I should admit. I stared at him, chest tightening with cautious hope. You never said anything. His gaze dropped briefly, vulnerability flickering across his features. Neither did you. I wasn't sure. If what I felt would ruin everything. The friendship we've built means more to me than anything. Losing you wasn't something I could risk. You wouldn't have, I insisted softly, leaning instinctively toward him. You couldn't. He studied my face intently, breathing, uneven. Noah, I spent years convincing myself that friendship was enough, that what we had was enough. But every time I looked at you, every laugh we shared, every secret, every stupid fight, it just made things harder. It got to the point where hiding it felt almost impossible. His admission cracked through me like lightning, illuminating emotions I'd buried deep inside. All the late-night conversations, the accidental brushes, the lingering glances, they had meant as much to him as they did to me. I was afraid, I admitted shakily, voice tight with emotion. Afraid that if you knew you'd pull away, and I can't. I hesitated, my eyes stinging with unshed tears. I can't lose you. Elliot, you won't, he promised immediately, his voice firm and tender. You're stuck with me, Noah. Always. Relief washed over me, releasing the tension I'd carried for years. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding, feeling lighter than I ever had. The truth was finally out, raw and fragile, yet somehow beautiful in its vulnerability. We sat quietly, the rhythmic drumming of rain becoming a comforting backdrop to the profound intimacy enveloping us. Elliot shifted even closer, erasing the small gap between our bodies. My breath hitched as his forehead gently touched mine, his eyes half closed, hesitant yet trusting. Are we really doing this? He whispered, the question carrying a tremor of uncertainty. I smiled softly, brushing my fingertips lightly across his wrist. I think we've been doing it for a long time. Just quietly, in our own ways. He chuckled, his breath warm against my lips. I guess we were always better at actions than words. Silence settled briefly between us again, thick with anticipation. My heart thrummed steadily, each beat pulling me irresistibly toward him. He glanced down at my lips, eyes darkening, revealing his desire without a single spoken word. Can I? Elliot began, voice catching as vulnerability flashed briefly in his eyes. Can I kiss you? My pulse raced uncontrollably, heart thudding so loudly I was certain he could hear it. The simple request sent shivers cascading down my spine, my breath shallow and quick. I leaned in, closing the last fragile distance between us. Yes, I breathed. The kiss was tentative at first, soft and cautious, our lips barely brushing. Elliot's fingers curled gently into my hair, drawing me closer, deepening the connection. My hand instinctively reached up to cradle his jaw, marveling at the warmth of his skin beneath my fingertips. Each gentle touch, each slow movement, spoke volumes about the love we'd both silently nurtured for years. When we finally pulled apart, breathless and flushed, Elliot rested his forehead against mine again, his breathing slightly ragged. His eyes, warm and open, searched mine, the uncertainty fully replaced by quiet confidence and relief. I've wanted to do that for a really long time, he whispered, a small, vulnerable smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Me too, I admitted shyly, the honesty easier now. It was worth waiting for. He laughed softly, the sound vibrating pleasantly between us. I'm glad you think so. Slowly, carefully, he wrapped his arms around me, pulling me against him in a comforting embrace. His heartbeat echoed mine, strong and steady, grounding me in a way I'd never known before. In that moment, all doubts and fears fell away, replaced by a deep, quiet certainty. Thank you, I whispered softly against his shoulder. For what? For waiting, I replied quietly. For being patient with me. For everything. He tightened his arms slightly, holding me close, his voice gentle. You were worth the wait, Noah. We stayed that way for a long time, silently listening, to the storm gradually easing outside, the gentle rain mirroring the peacefulness now blossoming within us. I nestled closer, breathing in his familiar scent, feeling utterly safe and loved. For the first time, I could imagine a future without hidden truths, where every glance, every touch, every word could be openly shared. Elliot eventually pulled back just enough to look into my eyes, his expression earnest and tender. "We'll figure this out, okay? Together, together," I repeated softly, smiling as I leaned back into him, knowing we'd crossed a threshold we could never retreat from. And in that tiny tent, surrounded by the quiet hum of falling rain, the love I'd kept hidden for so long felt free at last, warm and alive between us, guiding us toward a future brighter and more beautiful than either of us had ever imagined. Waking up next to Elliot felt surreal, a dream I'd secretly cherished, countless times now made beautifully real. The morning sun pierced softly through the fabric of our tent, bathing everything in a warm, golden glow. Elliot lay beside me, his dark hair messy and tousled, eyes still heavy with sleep, as he offered a lazy, contented smile. "Morning," he murmured, voice thick and warm. My heart fluttered at the intimacy in that simple greeting. "Morning," I echoed softly, savoring the quiet comfort that enveloped us. He shifted onto his side, propping his head on his hand, eyes tracing my face with open tenderness. "Did last night actually happen? Or did I dream it?" A shy grin tugged at my lips. "Pretty sure it happened, unless we're sharing dreams now." He chuckled softly, gently tracing a finger down my cheek. The touch felt natural yet thrillingly new. "You know, for someone who took forever to confess his feelings, you're surprisingly comfortable waking up in a tiny tent together." Heat rose instantly to my cheeks, and I buried my face in the crook of his neck, groaning playfully. "Shut up." He laughed warmly, pulling me even closer against him. "Relax, I like this confident side of you. It's cute." I lifted my head, eyebrows arched in playful defiance. "Cute? You're really pushing your luck here." Elliot's eyes sparkled mischievously, his fingers sliding gently into my hair. "Oh, really? What happens if I push a little more?" My breath caught, his teasing words sending shivers racing down my spine. His playful grin softened, and he pressed a gentle kiss to my forehead, lingering warmly against my skin. "I can't believe we wasted so much time hiding," he murmured softly, his voice carrying a deeper sincerity. "It feels like we've missed so much." "Maybe," I admitted, my fingers tracing lazy patterns on his chest. "But maybe we needed that time to figure ourselves out first." "I know I did." He hummed thoughtfully, fingertips lightly brushing along my spine. "Still, it's hard not to think about all the moments we could have had." "We have plenty more ahead of us," I reminded him gently, meeting his gaze with quiet certainty. "And I want all of them, with you." Elliot's eyes softened, his thumb tenderly grazing my lower lip. "Even when things get complicated?" "Especially then," I answered firmly. "It's always been easier with you around." He exhaled slowly, his breath warm and comforting against my cheek. "Good, because we can't exactly hide in this tent forever." A quiet laugh escaped me, easing some of the tension. "Yeah, eventually, we'll have to deal with reality." Elliot nodded, thoughtful and calm. "Your mom, Jason, our friends, they'll find out sooner or later." I sighed softly, nerves flickering briefly in my chest. "I know. But honestly, I think seeing Jason happy last night made me realize how important it is to be honest about who we are, about what we want." His eyes searched mine gently, a small smile lifting his lips. "And what do you want, Noah?" "You," I whispered without hesitation, my voice steady and sure. "I want us. Whatever challenges come with that." Elliot's smile broadened, bright and warm. "Good answer." He closed the gap between us, sealing his approval with a tender kiss that chased away my lingering fears. The way his lips moved gently against mine spoke of promises, of acceptance, of love openly acknowledged. When we finally parted, breathless and flushed, Elliot rested his forehead gently against mine again. We'll figure it all out one day, at a time. Together, I agreed softly, the word resonating deeply inside me. His fingers intertwined securely with mine, a quiet but powerful affirmation. As we lay there, wrapped in newfound intimacy and quiet confidence, the future no longer felt uncertain or frightening. Instead, it stretched before us, full of potential, challenges we'd gladly face hand in hand, and countless moments waiting patiently to be shared. The late afternoon sun cast gentle ripples of light across the lake, warming our backs as Elliot and I packed up the campsite. The tent, now a symbol of the most significant moment of our lives, lay carefully folded between us. Every glance we exchanged felt charged with new meaning, each smile carrying the warmth of shared secrets. "I still can't believe how fast things changed," Elliot said thoughtfully, stuffing the tent poles into their bag. "A day ago, I was convinced I'd never have the courage to tell you." I chuckled softly, brushing dirt off my jeans. "Honestly, I was prepared to hide forever." "Forever would have sucked," Elliot replied lightly, but his eyes were serious. "I can't imagine going back to pretending." "Me neither." My voice was quiet but firm, reflecting my newfound certainty. "I feel like I can finally breathe again." He paused, stepping closer until his shoulder brushed mine. "Good. Because holding your breath for that long isn't exactly healthy." I nudged him playfully, my heart skipping a beat at the ease between us, so natural yet thrillingly fresh. "Haha, very funny." He laughed warmly, his eyes sparkling with mischief. "Hey, someone's got to lighten the mood around here." We finished, packing the gear in companionable silence, our hands occasionally brushing, each touch sending a rush of warmth through me. Everything felt subtly different now, but beautifully so, as if a weight I'd carried for years had finally been lifted. Once everything was secured in the truck, we stood side by side overlooking the lake. The peaceful scene mirrored my inner calm. Elliot reached over, his hand gently sliding into mine, fingers intertwining with quiet confidence. The simple action felt monumental, a visible promise that our bond was now fully acknowledged, no longer hidden away. "You ready?" Elliot asked softly, thumb gently tracing the back of my hand. I took a deep breath, savoring the quiet power of that moment. More than ready. We climbed into the truck, the familiar route home stretching ahead, yet filled with new possibilities. Elliot drove, his hand casually resting on my knee, offering comfort and reassurance. I glanced at him, warmth flooding my chest. He caught my gaze and smiled softly, eyes holding the promise of many journeys yet to come. As the scenery blurred by, I couldn't help but reflect on everything that had led us here. The friendship we'd carefully nurtured, the years of hidden longing, and finally, the courage to speak truths we'd kept locked inside. It was terrifying to think about navigating the reactions of our friends and family. But with Elliot at my side, I felt ready to face anything. When we reached the outskirts of town, Elliot slowed the truck, glancing at me thoughtfully. "Noah, whatever comes next, whatever we have to face, we're doing it together." "I know," I replied softly, meaning every word. "I'm not afraid of what comes next, not as long as it's with you." He squeezed my knee gently, offering a reassuring smile. "Good, because I don't plan on letting you go anytime soon." "Promise?" I teased, warmth spreading through my chest. He chuckled, eyes dancing playfully. "Promise, you're officially stuck with me." "Sounds perfect," I whispered, genuinely content. As we drove into town, toward familiar streets and familiar faces, I felt a powerful sense of hope. I knew challenges awaited us, difficult conversations, surprises, reactions we couldn't control. But with Elliot beside me, the fear was manageable, outweighed by the excitement of finally living openly, honestly, and fully. This wasn't just an ending. It was a beginning. The first step into a future I had longed for, full of laughter, love, and countless ordinary days, made extraordinary simply because Elliot would be there. Smiling quietly to myself, I tightened my fingers around his, ready to embrace whatever life had in store for us, hand in hand.